Hi, welcome to Haven. This is a podcast that's a safe space for curiosity and conversation. And today I'm curious about relational TuneUps. Relational TuneUps. Basically, if you've been in a relationship with someone for a long time, then it's inevitable that you're going to need some slight tweaks, some slight maintenance, some slight tune-ups. So I've been married for 11 and a half years, and we've been a couple for 16 years and friends for 18 years. So we've been through a couple different iterations of maintenance. So I wanted to bring in my dear, dear husband, Aaron. Welcome.
Vroom, vroom. Stupid. Hi, I'm the mechanic of this marriage.
What?
I'm just kidding. I'm totally not.
We both are co-mechanics, co-drivers.
We know a thing or two. We can change our own oil maybe, but anything bigger than that, we need to go see a professional.
Dr. Jonathan Cood, thank you for your years of support. Okay, I wanted to just share like a couple tools that we've learned to help for just slight tweaks.
Yes. Let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it. My favorite one is actually the drive-through technique. Is when you're either in an argument or you both are having different opposing views. We were taught this, and it's very, very helpful. Do you remember which one I'm talking about right now?
Yes. And I need to know, am I the driver or am I working in the restaurant?
Yep. That's the first question, is basically when you're heated and you feel like, well, you're not listening to me, you're not listening to me. You then have to change and be like, okay, it's like pretend you're going to Chick-fil-A. One of you is in the car driving up to the little window, or that now they're actually people with iPads, so whatever. Driving up to the person with the iPad.
That's like another level, but go ahead.
I know it changed. One of you is the one taking the order. And if someone who's driving up goes, okay, I would like a #1 chicken sandwich with no pickles and an iced tea. The other person's job only is to repeat back to them exactly what they said, which is, okay, you would like a chicken sandwich with an iced tea. And then the driver goes, oh, actually, that's not right, because they had said without pickles. So then the driver restates what they said until the person taking the order says it to their satisfaction. In the sense of then the driver knows, okay, you at least heard me enough to be able to repeat back to me what I said. The issue that most people get into with fighting is both people try to climb in the car and say their order at the same time, and no one's there to take the order. They're both just yelling and shouting what they want. Or you say it and the someone didn't get it right, and then it's a whole thing instead of calmly saying, that's actually not what I said. Here's what I said.
The order is incorrect. I wanted a double animal style.
We're at the wrong restaurant. That's In-N-Out.
That's a part of listening, though.
That's so true. That's so true.
Like, that's the whole point, is when you do that interaction, what do you call it? When you do that framework for how to talk to each other, you have to just first decide who's listening and who
has the headset
ordering,
and who's in the car. Because
then you have such conflict that arises because, like, no, I'm like, how do you first determine that? I think because that's the source of so much of our conflict, is we've tried to do this thing, whatever the analogy is great, but who's first to share their voice of what they are concerned about?
Yeah, that has to be decided, like, first and foremost, of you're in the car, I'm wearing the headset. My responsibility is just to repeat back to you what you said to your satisfaction.
So it's like take turns.
Yeah, basically.
It's not like I'm the only one ordering right now. Like, you have to take my order. It's okay. I'll go first and then you go first. Or I'll be first to listen and you tell me what your order is. I'll repeat it back to you. And then vice versa, we'll do it the other way. And
oftentimes, too, of like the specifics here of saying like verbatim back feels a little bit like a cop-out. It feels like, oh, I'm just copying what you said. But when you try and paraphrase, it actually loses the meaning, and it does make the person more upset. It, like, when you try and add your own words to what they said, it actually doesn't feel like you're heard. They really do want to hear that you're saying the words back to me that I said, so then I feel like you get it. So like the verbatim like repetition back is actually important too. Do you want to use an example of a fight for this?
I was just thinking of one.
You can be the driver. I'll take the headset.
I mean, let's go with classic air conditioning.
I was going to say dishes. That's a classic. But yeah, go for air conditioning.
And we both have really different opinions on it. Dishes, I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it.
True. Okay, air conditioning. What are you going to say?
Air conditioning is the thing. One, car arguments are really tough because you're in an enclosed space. We're talking very fast. It's very dangerous.
We've said a lot of car stuff.
But
we have to tell them.
Times where
stop. We have to tell them we're talking about the car AC.
That's what I'm about to say.
I know it sounds like you just said car. It sounds like we're talking about the analogy. It's
well,
confusing.
We're in a tiny apartment with an enclosed space.
No, we're talking
about too hot. It's too cold. What?
So car AC is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Continue.
The AC when we're driving and we're in the car and I'm really hot, you're really cold. Always, perpetually that. And it's not even that. That's a tough one because that's so basic. What's like a hard?
Well, use that one and then we'll do a hard one. But you started this.
It's worth, I guess, finishing the little choreography of this very fictional fight.
Gosh, just do your order, man.
I'm pulling up to the window. I say, yes, please. I'd like the air to be below 70 degrees.
Okay, you want the air around 70 degrees.
No. You did not hear me correctly. I said I would like the air to be below 70 degrees.
You would like the air below 70 degrees.
That is correct. To which you would say,
I would like.
No.
Oh, what?
Say, does that complete your order? Is there anything else?
That is true. That actually is important to say. Does that complete your order? Do you have anything else to say?
Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes.
Have you tried or no?
No.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? And then I would say, no, thank you.
And I would say, my pleasure.
Wow. So then we'd flip flop.
Yes.
And I'd be like, welcome to our relationship. What can I do for you today?
I would say I would like the heated seats on to number 3, and I would like the air facing me at 78 degrees.
78.
It's cold
degrees,
outside.
But you don't. Okay, yeah. This is where I would go wrong and say, but you don't want to physically be at 78 degrees. Like that's like a hot-ish summer day. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm working at the restaurant. Let me correct myself. And I would say, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you would like to have the heated seats on, free of charge. No problem. Doesn't affect us at all. We give that away. And then, but the air conditioner at 78. Okay. I hear you.
And I would say close enough because I did say heated seats at level 3, but that was not really a big deal. So I would say, yes, I'm satisfied.
I don't control your heated seats.
Yeah. So I'm satisfied.
Great. I feel like we're really reliving these fights.
We never laugh as much when we're actually saying it.
It's very
it's much more intense where you just call me a lizard and say I should go live in a terrarium if I'm that. Wait, is terrarium?
Terrarium.
Terrarium if I'm that cold-blooded.
I've said that to you?
Yes.
Oh, Aaron. That's terrible. Terribly hilarious.
Okay.
All right. Sorry,
but
I'm back. Okay.
It's basically where it mitigates a lot of the back and forth is just being clear on what you're saying and what the other person's hearing.
Then what do you do? Is it a compromise? Is it, hey, can I turn it down if you turn your heated seat up?
I didn't think it typically goes to a compromise, but I think with any kind of communication, you just really, really, really want to feel heard and like you're listened to. I feel like that's so much of, I mean, even if like you watch other different like relationships, it's like, you're not listening to me or like, you're not hearing me or you're not listening. What that means is like, they didn't say what you were saying back to you to the level that you were satisfied with and felt heard. Mm-hmm. I feel listened to, even if you don't have to agree with it. We don't even have to agree that that's the option.
Okay. Yeah.
I just want to feel listened to.
That's good. Because, sometimes people have a hard time actually saying what they need. Before that whole drive-through analogy, it's like, I need you to stop doing this. And it's like, no, that's something about the other person. You need this to happen, you know.
That's actually
I
really...
need to feel warm, you know, instead of cold. Instead of like, you keep changing I need him to stop changing the air. Then that's not a need. That's like accusation kind of, you need to feel warmer. And that is just acknowledging that is, it's a very basic thing, but it's vulnerable. You know, it shows some vulnerability if you're especially heated in a fight, to be like identifying what you actually need.
And I think even with that one is like, sometimes people have a hard time saying what they need. Sometimes they have a hard time acknowledging someone else's request without feeling like they're giving up their own. Like, I can say what your request is, even if I disagree. Sometimes we feel like, oh, even like entertaining that means that I may go that route, which is not the case. But I think your point of like saying, of like even the way it's like, oh, it's not, oh, you always change the air. It's, I need to feel warm. That's the second relational tune-up. The first one I wanted to talk about was the drive-through. The second one is critique versus a complaint. We learned that a lot of, there is a huge difference in like being very critical and critiquing someone versus voicing a genuine complaint. Complaints are totally normal and actually fine, which it kind of has a negative connotation. It's like, I don't want to be a complainer, but actually like a complainer is saying, hey, this is bothering me, and I'm going to tell you, versus a critique, which is, you're wrong, this is critical, that's a different like way than you should be.
It's like a difference of me saying, in a safe space for curiosity and conversation, something like the dishes you brought up. It's like, I could say, like the pan I always use to make anything, eggs or whatever, the stainless steel pan I have. When you cook with it, sometimes there's stuff left on it. When you clean it, there's stuff left on it. And I'm like, I don't like this when this happens. Like, I don't like that there's stuff on here. That's a complaint, right? Versus if I said, you're a terrible cook.
Oh gosh, critique, right? You're a terrible
Save
cleaner.
Space for curiosity and conversation.
I thought you were going to say a terrible cleaner.
Or that, yeah.
I guess a good cook wouldn't leave stuff on the pan.
I should have maybe taken a step back and said, yeah, you're terrible at doing the dishes.
Definitely. Can I share a funny story about what our daughter said recently? You made her something to eat, and she goes, oh, Dad, you are such a really good cooker. And then she looked at me and she goes, Mommy, you're a little bit good cooker. And I was like, thanks, babe. Like, we both know where we stand here. But you are the best cooker in our family.
That's very sweet of her to say. And I'm sorry I made that rude comment.
I forgive you.
See, it works.
It works.
But
we didn't just edit out 5 minutes of fighting before we cut back to you
anyway,
saying.
So the complaint critique is really big because, you know, especially I'm very critical, I think, naturally, or maybe I complain a lot, or I just see things, or there's things, I like things a certain way in particular. Maybe.
You're insanely particular.
But we each are in our own ways. There's definitely things that each of us have that irk the other person, and it's fine.
Okay.
We learn how to complain about them instead of critiquing each other.
And then it kind of leads into the next one I wanted to talk about, where our therapist oftentimes will say, like when one of us is being like defensive in what the other one's saying, he'll ask us like, what is the cure for defensiveness? And it is?
To find the truth in what the other person is saying.
Exactly. That one's a big one. He'll literally ask us, and for the first couple times
we're like, what?
We're like, what?
What is it?
We don't remember because we're too busy being defensive.
Like, I don't know, but she's doing something really bad. She's wrong. She's hurting my feelings.
I'm trying to think of like our last like big fight, not just like, oh, like car AC, which is perpetual, or dishes, which is just like inevitable. And I think sometimes we get into this trap of itemizing back and forth of, I did, X, Y, Z, so I need you to do like A, B, C or whatever. It's like, oh, well, I got the kids and I like secured the dinner and gave them a bath, so you can brush their teeth and put them to bed. Or like all these reasonings instead of just saying, hey, would you brush the kids' teeth and put them to bed? It feels like we sometimes stack out and trying to outweigh or show the other person all these ways that we're contributing instead of asking for. And then another response that you could have of like, if I did that would be like, well, I did X, Y, Z, or like I like took the car in to get the oil done and I took care of this bill. And that was defensive. Instead of the truth of what I'm saying is, the truth in what I'm saying is I need help putting the kids to bed. That's the only truth. You do not even have to agree with me listing all the other things I've done. You don't even have to agree with the way that I asked it. But like, okay, before I feel defensive, because the way that I worded that was pretty antagonistic. It was pretty insinuating I'm doing more than you. Instead of getting defensive, it's what's the truth in this request? What is the truth in what she's saying right now?
Which would be, you're overwhelmed, you need help.
Yes.
But it would be helpful to hear that at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
the goal is to be like, let me actually just take the second, take a deep breath and try and be vulnerable enough to ask for what I need.
Mm-hmm.
But we do fall in that pattern of like stacking things. So like, hey, I just did all this and this and this. Can you do this part? And it's like, if you get defensive or I get defensive, whoever's on the which side of that court, it's like, oh, like I am having to read between the lines a little bit because I care about you and I want that to grow. Like,
and I'd imagine you're way more inclined to help me when I say I'm overwhelmed. Can you help this? Versus me trying to,
I did this and this and this, and I just need you to do everything else.
Okay, well, yeah, that does
sounds so mad.
Sounds familiar. I think that was our last fight, though. I think that's what came up.
Now a quick pause to hear from my sponsors.
One thing I know about myself is that if I'm driving, I have to use a GPS. I'm not one of those people that's in touch with cardinal directions. And typically if I say, I think you should turn right here, you should actually absolutely turn left. My gut is completely off when it comes to directions. And segue, probiotics can't help with most of your gut decisions like being directionally challenged. But if your gut needs a little support, Ritual has your back. Did you know daily disturbances like poor diets, stress, travel, the use of certain medications, and plenty of other factors can throw off your gut microbiome? Enter Ritual. They created a 3-in-1 supplement including clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and a postbiotic to support the relief of mild and occasional bloating, gas, and diarrhea. I want to make sure I'm giving my gut the best possible nutrients, so I take Symbiotic Plus daily to check that box. Postbiotics provide fuel to the cells that make up the gut lining to support a healthy gut barrier. The delayed release capsule is designed to survive the harsh conditions of the upper GI tract, and it's an all-in-one minty capsule, no refrigeration needed. There's no more shame in your gut game. Symbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/haven. Start Ritual or add Symbiotic Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/haven for 25% off.
This episode is brought to you by Efficienade. Efficienade offers fractional virtual assistants whose sole purpose is to help people who are making a difference. Are you bogged down in your email and still managing your own calendar? Delegating those tasks to a high-caliber career assistant can free you up to utilize your time towards the areas of your best and highest use, allowing you to focus on the areas you truly thrive in. Learn more at efficienade.com. That's efficient, AIDE.com. Okay, back to the episode.
Did we find the cure during that fight?
Probably not. We were probably both pretty defensive until afterward when things calmed down and we're like, hey, that was intense. I'm really sorry.
Yeah. I think another thing that can help in like fighting is like wording, where it's not labeling someone, where this one was one you did like a couple months ago, but I'm still laughing at it because we don't say things like calling someone you are blank or whatever. So one time I was doing something and you said, you are annoying. And I almost looked at you and being like, what? We never say that. And then you just go, me.
Good save.
You are annoying.
You are annoying.
Me. But it's true. It's like you can say like you are being such and such. You are acting like.
Even better, I'm feeling really annoyed.
Okay, well, that's always the goal, hon. I'm giving people like some
tears.
Go
for the goal.
Okay.
Which brings me to another, I'm taking over again. Which brings me to another segment that I think we should talk about is when it comes to relationship tune-ups is like goals. Like what, if you're going to really to do a tune-up on your car or whatever, like you tightening things up, making sure everything's working, like kind of taking a second to like a bird's eye view of your relationship. Like, what's like working well, what's not working so well, and what is creating new opportunities or bearing new fruit, like that kind of thing. Like,
totally.
You have any thoughts
for our relational goals?
Or just about what are some examples of some goals or things that, you know, we talk about a lot, because we talk about financial things a lot. That's a big one, just to like be on the same page. And
I think relational goals is always putting the other person as the priority.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to say that, but you actually see it in your time and your money. Like that's where you see where your priorities actually are. It's not in your words. So for you and I, every single Friday night, we go on a date, like standing, always Friday. There's a lot of birthdays that come up on Fridays, and there's a lot of parties and a lot of other things. And 9 times out of 10, I'm declining it so we can have a date. And that matters more to me. And it costs money and it takes time, but it's also like, I'm not going to look up in 4 years and be like, oh, we just drifted apart. I'm serious. Like
ships in the night.
No, yeah. It's our goal to stay connected and have fun and put each other as a priority above even our children.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for any of the listeners who like have kids too, it's there's a dynamic where you as parents, like you've got your career and you're a mom and you're my wife and all these things where we have our marriage. On the other side of that, I have my career. I have my relationship with the kids, like, and other things I like to do creatively, and, you know, friends and all of that. Like finding time for all those things is really complex. But if we're not careful, the kid dynamic is, I'll take them to school in the morning, you pick them up at the end of the day, or whoever's doing what. And we're not really doing anything together with the whole family. And it, you know, seasons are different, you know, all the time. Like there's just times for different things, but it feels like lately that's been a challenge for us, is finding like all of us together family time, and not like, you know, just passing the family back and forth between each of us. And I think we each feel that stress, not that it's failing, but the pressure, you know, of that a lot.
It's true. That's one of our family goals, is to have the 4 of us time. Because you and I are pretty set. Like we've had this a long time for you and I, but the new dynamic of the 4 of us, we really have to fight for. Like
but I think it goes beyond the family. I think it's with us too. Like there's times when it's really hard to make time for each other, because you'll hit the gym in the morning and then you're like, I need to go right to work. I'm like, okay, I won't see you that whole morning. And I need that, you know? So there's this tension that you know, it happens, and how we deal with it, the tune-up stuff of like being really real, is just talking about it and making each other aware of those dynamics. Like, hey, this is working for me. This is not working for me. And not being afraid to like, you know,
recalibrate.
Or I'm just going to say ruffle feathers too. It's like, hey, I don't know if this schedule works because I miss you. Or I don't know if this schedule works because I'm really stressed out, you know, because, you know, I am going nonstop until like 7 p.m. And then it's, you know, I'm fried by the end of the day. I just want to go to bed, you know, that it's okay if it's for a season, but what I was saying before is just like taking a wider view of the relationship and identifying like, where are the fractures? Where are the faults? Where's the stuff that can hurt later on if we're not careful with it, and adjusting, like you said, like recalibrating.
Well, I think it goes with the recalibration kind of thing of like when a car's on the road a long time, like it has to exit and it has to get assessed. Like you have to do normal tire maintenance. You have to check and change the oil. And then there could be really big things like a check engine light. So I feel like that's also when it comes to, why are you laughing?
Nothing, because I just had the thought, like, yeah, especially if you're going into like a really long season, like say where your wife is starting a business and, you know, you got to like do all those things and be like, road trip, because it's going to be a while.
It's true. It's totally true. Yeah. Like gearing up for big life things. But also I think it's like there's certain things that we can do, but we also really need a professional mechanic to help us like assess and look under the hood. And that's why our marriage counselor really helps of like addressing issues before they become things that are going to implode and total the car.
Yeah, you may like, I don't know, I love you a lot, but I don't pretend that I know everything about how to interact with you or to be there for you or for, even for any of this to work, it's nice to have help.
Totally. Okay.
Professionally and friends and, whatever.
Another one of the tune-ups I was thinking of was like boundaries, which I feel like everyone talks so much about boundaries and what they are. But I think in the sense of relationship, it's nice to say like, these are the things that like we will talk about or I won't. And I remember actually when we were dating, like, cause I was thinking, when's the first time I remember having like, we have a boundary together is I think one time I like out of insecurity, I think was saying something about one of your ex-girlfriends or whatever. And I remember you stopped me and you said, hey, like, I don't appreciate you talking about her that way. Like, I have a lot of care for her and I really respect her. And I don't plan to break up with you or have that in. But if we ever did break up, I wouldn't allow anyone to speak about you this way. And so, like, I just appreciate it. Like, let's not, go there with her. And I remember being embarrassed, but also, like, deeply respecting of that's such a great thing to call out. In the sense of, like, I think in our relationship, it's like, okay, we're not going to trash talk people. Like, it's actually not even just about like ex-girlfriends. It's like people of like, hey, we're not going to talk about people that way together.
Yeah. I was just thinking like, wow, that's a really deep thing. I was 17 or something. Yeah. I think creating the boundaries in things like that are good because not that we have an end, like, there's other boundaries we've put in place just with our marriage to not even mention the word divorce, never like threatening in any sense of that. Like just to like, hey, like the line is danger zone's way over there. I'd like my line to be like safely here. So if we do fall over it or have an argument or accidentally say something we don't mean, it's not venturing all the way to that like damaging territory.
Totally. And
then trust, like that, it feels like that's how we've built trust over the years.
It's ultimately that. It's like complete trust. And I think there are other instances of like when we were just like young and dumb and like not figuring out like real boundaries. I remember one time I was so upset and I was trying to like have you feel the depth of like how upset and hurt I was by you. And I thought, I know I can only do this once because we're going to have a conversation about it and it's really not going to be okay, but it's going to feel really good to do it once. I walked over to your modular synth and all of your like, you had all those plugs in different things and I just unplugged them all. And I knew that would take a long time and I was really, really mad.
No, I had my entire like studio flow thing set up in our old apartment and Haven unplugged literally everything.
It was so wrong. In the moment,
every power cord, every like thing I'd ran, like audio patch cables everywhere. And I heard her doing it. I heard the little like the little sound of the cables coming undone and I knew what she was doing. And then I think we even kind of like
I think we just
it.
knew how wrong it was and how like violating that really was not supposed to be. And I knew I could never do it again.
But you know that you probably should have never done that in the first place.
I know this. That's the correct thing if I should say. It felt so good in the moment, man. But it wasn't worth it. Kind of.
Wow.
No, it really wasn't. It was wrong.
You are trying so hard
We're talking
to
about
convince
boundaries.
yourself. Yeah, and you're trying to justify when you broke that one. But it was
totally
like,
wrong.
It's just a thing. It's not a big deal, but you were trying to get at it. I think why we laugh at it now is because to me it kind of felt like you're like an ant trying to like do something bad to me and I'm just like holding you there. Like it's not really like a big deal. Like I do that all the time myself.
That's
like,
the whole I wasn't going to smash anything or break anything.
Thankfully, but
never done that.
There's that like dynamic of, oh yeah, you're trying so hard to get at me and I just have my wall up and you can't touch this, you know?
Talking about the little thing, it kind of reminds me of another thing our like therapist had told us with is like the little version of your spouse or whoever you're in a long-term relationship with in your head. Like the little Aaron in my head is probably like in fights is like the worst version. It's not the Aaron I'm fighting here. The little Aaron in my head is everything he's ever done wrong to me, everything I've ever been upset with. And sometimes I'm fighting with that figment of my imagination and that figure and not actually you. And sometimes we have to remove it. He was saying like, sometimes we'd fight me. He'd be like, okay, Aaron, like that's the little Haven in your head picture. That's not the Haven that's talking to you right now.
It's like an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Like a projection, not.
It's a projection that like he even was saying, like sometimes it's informed in past experience, but then it's not taking into account who they are here, who they are now, and what they're showing up as. That we have to be careful in long-term relationships to not be fighting with the little version of them in our head that's a certain way that may not be who they are presenting and who they are right now. True.
That feels like expectations kind of stuff. Like you're not looking at the reality of who the person is, just your ideal of who they should be is not very healthy.
And then when we say even relational tune-up, that's like assuming like a long-term type of relationship. It's not always like marriage. It really can be friendship. It can be someone you've worked with for a long time. Like every relationship needs a type of tune-up. But it does make me think of like we've done some premarital counseling with other couples. And one of the pieces of advice that you give them is like you become married over time. So many people think like, oh, I go up to the altar and now I'm married. But like it's a continual process. Like it's not an overnight type thing.
Yeah. It's like you get married, you have a wedding, and then you have like the rest of your life to keep working on this thing. Like maybe it's a sculpture. I think of it that way. Like you kind of can see what it could be, but then you're just going at it.
And it takes a long time for your brain to like accept of like, this is what's happening. I remember that after we had a kid is like, even saying with our therapist of like, you can now understand how like parents accidentally forget a car seat in the car is like, you're getting so used to having this thing all the time that like, you have to continually remember, oh, I'm going to bring the baby. Like I got to do things that like the baby, everything is so different that even sometimes married is that of like, oh, I'm married. I have to remind myself of like, I have to consider your thoughts, or I need to pull up like our time together and invest in a way that I hadn't before, or I need to like make sure that we're on the same page, where when you're single and autonomous, it's not the same. Like it takes a long time for your brain to catch up with the new reality too.
Do you think that's related to your concept of the relationship tune-up stuff? Like you have to think about those things, like reassess, or you having to reevaluate, like what's the reality right now? Like what do I need to be, what am I forgetting? You know, oh yeah, we needed to do this. Like when you like implement a change, how do you keep it?
Yeah. I think it is like, it just takes time and constant reminders and then consistency for sure. But I think as far as even like when things come up, I feel like there needs to be some type of dashboard that you're checking in on. Like a dashboard on the car is like, obviously the lights come on when there are issues, like a low tire energy, not energy.
She got that low tire energy.
Low tire energy.
Whoa.
Low tire pressure, or like a check engine light or whatever. But then it's also like, have I been going 70 miles an hour for too long? You know, do I need to like peel off and like check it, or like, is this AC working? You know, is it hot in here? Like, I think it's also just being aware of your environment and talking about it.
When you have things come up in life, sure, that could demand a change, but sometimes like if you want to change, like you have a desire, like, I don't want to be this way anymore. I don't want to be, say, like, I want to be more disciplined, you know, that requires a change. And, you know, sometimes people have dynamics between them that feel perpetual. Like, what's one of our perpetual issues? Oh, I'm always going to be the one to apologize first. Yes. Just by the nature of how, even if you do something wrong first, it just happens. And
I would say you're more flexible and I are on the side of more stubborn.
Yes. But not that I want to change that. But if I want to change something, no, because I can't change you. But if I change something in myself, like say I want to be, I don't know, less passive with certain things. If I actually put my foot down on stuff and I'm waiting for you to apologize, it's new territory and it's very cool because it's exciting for me just that like, oh yeah, this is not just how things always have to be.
Right.
Like it's not every day isn't the same, or not that we have fights like that every day, but you know what I mean? Like the constant dynamics they don't have to last the same way. There's a time for it, I guess.
I think it's the best part of like a relationship is it would call you to more, and it would require the best version of you, not the one that is maybe even the most complacent or the most natural, but it's saying, I think you can elevate, and I think there's more in you that you can work on.
What's another perpetual issue that we have? They're so long, I don't even remember.
I can't even remember our last fight.
We just talked about it. What was it? I've already forgotten. But
itemizing.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
That's more of just after kids. It's not perpetual.
But some things with people are perpetual issues, and you can't not that you should not try to change it, because I think, things in my life that keep coming back, I'm like, I really should work on this. I should be like, how do I dismantle this, or how do I change? And believing that I can change is good. And you believing you can change is great too. But
60% of marital issues are perpetual issues, where it's 60%. It's not saying it's unsolvable, but it just comes up again and again. And if you could just even acknowledge of these are just our perpetual issues, it also kind of loses the intensity or steam, or just trying to then change the other person. I guess the discernment is, when is it a perpetual one? When is it one that I can work on?
Like for me, what a perpetual thing is, I'm very detail oriented probably. And that's a weird way to say that. But I will notice things and make suggestions. I call them suggestions. You perceive them sometimes as critiques. Back on the complaining critique paradigm, but that is a perpetual issue. Yes. And I've had to work on it to change. I've had to not just hold my tongue, but try to be constructive with it. I'll really only speak up if something's truly bothering me, because I care about us. I care about.
Well, I think your nature is having the ideas of this is how the dishes should go in. This is where everything should go in the fridge. This is how I like my countertop. Where for me, I'm more let me have my space. Let me live my life. And so I think it's it's a balance of me not hearing that your request is an indictment of how I've chosen to do things, which is on my side of the fence. And then yours is to not necessarily feel like your opinion on everything is how I have to wield all of my behavior.
True.
That's how I'd probably word that. Is there anything else you want to add on this relational tune-up? It was just kind of a popcorn topic of ideas.
Oh, anything else you'd like to add?
Actually, yeah, one last one is Esther Perel was talking about there's such a necessity for mystery in a relationship that is what adds to chemistry too, is having pieces of the other person that aren't just so homogenized together with you. And I think some parts of relational tune-up too is it's not always about the relationship. It's not always about everything working and improving and always going together. You're going to live some life, hopefully, apart, and then when you come back together, that's actually a great thing, because then you have more mystery, you have more engagement, you have more topics, you have more things to come together on, that it doesn't always have to be how can we improve our relationship, how can we make this 1% better. On some regard too, it's just enjoy the drive. I know we've said car references a lot, but I mean at some point, just enjoy the ride together too, and don't always feel like you need to adjust every single little thing.
That makes a lot of sense. Because I'm very future oriented, and even just watching shows or whatever, the culture of binge watching things people have, there's a tendency to want to just figure it all out and see it all and understand every turn that's coming up. For me on the futuristic side, it's I feel leaving that up to be discovered is very valuable, because otherwise, we know so much about each other, and there were times even when it felt like we were meta fighting about fights and things, and it just was not helpful. And it's oh yeah, we're looking under the microscope of things that are not necessary. We need to just live our lives do other things, than talk about, we're never going to have it all figured out. And the more granular I think we get with that parts of our relationship, it's not like, that's where you like kill the mystery.
Totally. Yeah.
In some ways.
Well, thanks for joining me on this one. Thanks for wearing my hoodie. I really appreciate you repping that. So that is at havenpod.com. So I will open up another little release. I don't know if it's going to be today when this episode drops, but I drop merch from time to time. There's stickers, water bottle, hoodie.
It's very comfortable.
It is very comfortable. It's a thick, durable weight. It's a very nice hoodie.
Thank you, Haven.
You're welcome, Aaron. You're very, very welcome. Other than that, follow, like, subscribe on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts at Haven the Podcast. Sign up for my newsletter at havenpod.com when you're going to get your stickers or your hoodie. That comes out once a month too, and it's more of like an inside scoop. And then rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever you're listening to this. That really helps this get some more visibility out there. But other than that, Aaron, I appreciate you coming on as a guest. This was actually a last-minute ad that we pulled in.
It's a very nice conversation. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome, dear. Now you can go back to being an introvert in your room after this if you'd like.
I'm going to go pick up the kids.
Okay. See you later.